The next stop on my journey was Portland, Oregon. Now, originally I was meant to get the train from Seattle to Portland, which I was very excited about, but due to a mudslide, I ended up having to fly to Portland. And the first thing that I did when I touched down in Portland City was I made my way to Powell's Books. Now, Powell's Books is this enormous bookshop that is in Portland. It is like a whole block big, and it is full to the gills with every possible book you could imagine. Now, did I want to bring all of these books home with me? Yes. Did I? No. Which I think shows great self-restraint and maturity and growth.
I don't know why I'm whispering, but I'm gonna whisper anyway. Look at all these ghost books. Hey! I talked about that book on the podcast. By Adam Allsuch Boardman. I talked about it on the podcast. That's so exciting. Yes. All of these are all ghost books. Like, all of them. I don't even know. First of all, I have no space in my suitcase, so I don't even know why I'm looking at this. Like, look at the big holster book of ghosts. People who don't know they're dead. A haunted history of invisible women. Oh, shut up. This place is amazing. I want to buy all the books.
So my next spooky stop on this journey was the Lakewood Centre for the Arts in Lake Oswego. Now, why did I go here, you may ask? Well, in mini episode 251, Joe had written in about their experience having a paranormal investigation team in to investigate the theatre. And that paranormal investigation team was Sinister Coffee and Creamery. And I spoke to Joe and Kelly and Michelle from Sinister Coffee and Creamery in a bonus episode, which is called Bonus Episode with Sinister Coffee and Creamery and the Lakewood Theatre. I'm nothing if not imaginative when it comes to the titles of episodes. Anyway, when I realised I was going to be in Portland and I was going to be really close to the Lakewood Theatre, I messaged Joe and I was like, hey, can I come and visit? Can I come and do some filming and maybe we can have a chat and do a bonus episode? And he readily agreed, and they were so lovely and everybody was really welcoming, and I got some coffee and lots of other amazing gifts, and they were really nice and welcoming. So what I'm going to do, which is a little bit of a break from the norm, instead of me just retelling you everything that happened in the theatre, I'm going to play you that little story from Joe that was on mini episode 251 so that you can get a visual of the theatre while hearing the things that happened there. So hope you enjoy it. My name is Joe and I'm the marketing assistant for Lakewood Theatre in Lake Oswego, Oregon. On January the 6th, the theatre will be hosting the world premiere for an original play, The Ghost of David Belasco, a comedy based on the famous New York playwright. New and original productions always struggle with finding an audience right out of the gate. And as we are coming off multiple sellout performances of Elf the Musical, I wanted to keep that momentum going into the next show as much as possible. I consulted with Natalie, the artistic and festival director for Lakewood, with different possibilities for generating interest in the show. And in the literal spirit of David Belasco, we came up with the idea of inviting a team of paranormal investigators to inspect the theatre for ghostly activity. The investigation was held on December the 19th. And although the team has not yet examined all of the footage they collected that night, what they have found already is eye-opening. The Lakewood Theatre was started in 1952 as a performance group that moved from venue to venue for its first several years before settling into a vacant Methodist church, then finally moving into its current building in 1979, a former grade school built in 1929. Natalie and I agreed that after almost a century of constant activity, with countless number of people coming through the doors, there was a high probability that something supernatural may be cohabiting our space. I conducted a search for paranormal investigators in the area and immediately found the exact right people for the job: Sinister Coffee and Creamery, a local woman-owned coffee company who also conduct supernatural investigations. I'm a caffeine addict, and Natalie has boundless enthusiasm for the supernatural, so the combination was too perfect. After one call to sinister co-owners Michelle and Kelly, they were 100% on board, and we immediately scheduled for them and their colleague James to take a preliminary tour of the site so they could get a read of the place. We gave the trio full access to the building: prop rooms, wardrobe, the boiler room, office space, the auditorium, the whole shebang. Natalie and I were very careful not to tell the 3 investigators anything beyond basic facts, as to not influence their feelings. We both have heard stories from other staff and a few performers about their own creepy experiences in the theatre. If the crew had similar experiences without any prior knowledge, then we knew we were onto something. During the tour, Kelly mentioned that normally their team would have to pick and choose what equipment to bring, but considering the size of the venue and the different locations where ghosts could be lurking, she said, "We might have to bring everything." The date of December the 19th was chosen as we didn't have any shows going on that night. The crew would have the entire place to themselves until 8 AM the next day. Once the staff had gone home, Michelle, Kelly, James and a few other members of the Pacific Northwest Paranormal Collaborative set up their equipment around the building. Natalie joined in to document the event herself. I chickened out. Several cameras, recording devices and EMF meters were strategically placed all around the building, and so the waiting game began. At first the night was slow, a lot of listening through headphones while sitting still in the dark. Michelle remarked about this beforehand. The stuff you don't see on TV is all the downtime. Several hours into the night, the team got their first transmission from a spirit box located on the theatre stage. The message kept reading, "Look up, look up," in an area just off stage left. This is an area where several staff and cast had mentioned seeing a white fuzzy shape above the curtain close to the ceiling. They listened for several more minutes. The voice continued to repeat, "Look up," but there was no elaboration beyond that. Later, in another part of the building, the voices became more chatty. The team set up a Powerlight device in order to better communicate with the voices. By their estimation, there may be 8 or 9 spirits floating around Lakewood. The names Paul and Stephanie were repeated multiple times. And then this happened.
Were you performers here? Were you part of the play Ghost in the 60s? Oh. Wow. Yeah.
Are you kidding?
The Price is Right, folks. What? And there's nobody's on a walkie-talkie or anything like that?
No.
Wow.
2 days later, Natalie did some research into Lakewood's history. She found a programme from that production of Ghosts and found a sponsor named Paul. But after some digging, we found he had no connections to anyone named Stephanie. Another possible roadblock was that Ghosts was performed at Lakewood's previous venue at the church down the street, several years before moving to our current location. However, replaying the video, the Powerlight barely registered when the ghosts were asked if they were performers, but lit up when they were asked if they were part of the play. This could mean the spirits were members of the crew, former staff, sponsors, or audience members of that show. Also, Lake Oswego is a close-knit community with personal and professional ties that go back decades. There is a high probability that most of the people involved in Ghosts were still part of the Lakewood community well after the move from the church into the modified grade school. And let's be honest with ourselves, theatre people love attention. If a theatre person were to haunt a venue, it would definitely be the place where they would be guaranteed an audience for eternity. This is one fact all of us at Lakewood can agree on. There is more footage from this investigation, but it has not been released yet. If you and your audience are interested, we will continue to send you updates as new evidence is uncovered. Since I was not there, I have to gather more detailed information from both Natalie and the PNWPC, so my correspondence is as accurate as possible. Natalie and I fully intend to cooperate with the PNWPC even after the ghost of David Belasco has closed. Judging by what has been uncovered so far, there is no telling what they will find next. Did you happen to catch that creepy attic-y crawl space? Like, what's going on there? And Joe and Kelly and Michelle were telling me that they've heard noises coming from that crawl space, but they've just chosen to ignore it. So, pretty sure anybody who goes into that crawl space is going to be yeeted up in there and never seen again. I mean, besides all that, do check out Sinister Coffee and Creamery. They do post their coffee beans, and they are an LGBTQI plus women-led company, so definitely worth checking out. And check out the Lakewood Theatre if you are in or around the Portland or Lake Oswego area. I love community theatre. It has such a place in my heart and it makes me really happy, so please do go and support them if you get half the chance. My next stop on my spooky journey was to go to the Shanghai Tunnels. And if you go to shanghai-tunnels.com, you can book yourself onto a tour. I think it was like $44 for a tour and beer tasting after the tour. Now, I personally don't drink beer, but the people around me did, and they seemed pretty impressed with the beer. The tour was really good and really good fun, and I filmed with the tour provider's permission. Obviously, I'm not going to post the entirety of the tour on here, but I am going to post a little bit about Nina's story so you can see kind of how good the tour guide is, what kind of stories you can expect to hear, and what the general vibe is when you go to Old Town Pizza and the Shanghai Tunnels. Let's go to the Shanghai Tunnels. I'm late. As per usual. Let's do this.
It's just me here. So I'm like upstairs in this brewery place. Hang on, I'll see. I don't know how much the light is going to pick up. And I think it's like there's nobody else here for the tour so far. I couldn't take my camera out on the way here because the neighbourhood was a little bit sketchy, and I didn't know whether it was safe to have my camera out, so I just decided not to. I think I'm going to have to get an Uber back, even though it's not actually that far away from home, or from the hotel, I mean, just because it was a little bit, the neighbourhood seemed a little bit questionable, and for the most part, right, I know that unhoused people, they're not necessarily going to be any danger to me, but I'm very aware that sometimes people are unpredictable, and I am a woman on my own walking through a city that I don't know, so yeah, I'm just gonna have to wait and see. I'll keep you updated.
That is not the original elevator though, that is a new elevator. I didn't realize that thing actually moved for weeks doing this job. First time that it did, I jumped out of my pants. The original hydraulic elevator sat just inside of that little corner where today there's a sitting booth. And it's where the story of Nina starts and stops. Are any of you familiar with our permanent resident? No. We may have catered to the upper class, but that doesn't mean that we're without our own dirty little secrets, including gambling rings, opium dens, and seamstresses. You see, Portland is down and dirty and didn't exactly care what you did as long as you could pay your dues. So the ladies of the night wrote seamstress on their taxes to continue operation. We actually had a Zumba class just like that about 10 years ago. Everyone was really confused as to why men were suddenly into Zumba. It's actually how they got caught too. But unfortunately for Nina, she did not choose this life. She was pressed into it, but had no other way to support herself or her 12-year-old daughter. When you're in human trafficking, it's real difficult to get back out. But one day she's approached by traveling missionaries. These men offered to free her, to save her and her child, but only in exchange for information on the men running the more illicit operations. So there are a few schools of thought on this. Maybe they were missionaries, doing the good work, cleaning up the town, as was common in the day. but somehow holding a woman and her child ransom for information instead of getting them out first. The other thought is that they're not missionaries, but instead undercover investigators, because someone was not paying their proper respects. They came to collect. Either way, Nina never got to enjoy any freedom her information paid for, because she was soon found thrown from the 3rd story where she worked, down the hydraulic elevator shaft, to land at the bottom. There's no investigation into the murder of a prostitute. Everyone knew better than to talk. But even after a century, it seems her presence may continue to linger around the building. For example, Jeff Dwyer is an author on the paranormal. He traveled around Oregon trying to find its most haunted locations. So he stopped here. He sat in that little booth, and in his time, he caught a whiff of perfume, heard the rustle of long skirts moving between the tabletops, and a voice just out of reach, just whispering. And these are not singular occurrences. These are the same things that have been reported in Old Town Pizza and a surrounding building here for decades. Now, I was not on this particular tour, and I think I'm okay with that. But my co-host Jason went down with a few other paranormal investigators, and they brought their own equipment, including night vision cameras and EVPs, or spirit boxes. And when they were down in the pitch dark, they caught 2 distinct words. Help me. Help me. And they caught this on video. You'll find I'm actually a giant scaredy cat, and I don't know if I could still be here if I was there when that happened. I'm also afraid of the dark, and I jump at loud noises. If you try to jump scare each other, you will get me. And please remember, I'm the one pouring you beer after this. Inside that booth, there's even still a brick that bears Nina's name, carved into it. Nobody knows exactly who did it, or exactly when. It is beyond our living memory. It is also entirely graffitied up inside, so it's a bit of a scavenger hunt to try to find it. But if you'd like after the tour, feel free to take a look and try to find the historic brick left inside Nina's deathbed. I have one more story of Nina as we head on down below. Follow me.
The tour then continued deep into the Shanghai tunnels underneath Old Town Pizza, and it was pretty spooky, pretty atmospheric, and pretty impressive. I really enjoyed it. I took loads of pictures with my flash on to try and catch some spooky stuff, but I didn't. But that's not the point. If you want to learn more about Portland ghost stories, you can do so by listening to episode number 205 of Real Life Ghost Stories, where I go more in depth to the legends of the Shanghai tunnels, what they were used for, which is pretty much anything underground and criminal that you could think of. That's what they were used for. So massive shout out to the Shanghai Tunnels tour guides. You can book your tickets on shanghai-tunnels.com. Obviously this isn't an ad or anything, I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And thus endeth my short time in Portland, Oregon. And my next stop is going to be San Francisco, and I'm going to give you one guess in the comments as to what spooky place I visit in San Francisco, and I'll see you next time.